All right. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the January 14th, 2026 meeting of the Redmond Planning Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We will start with a roll call. Commissioner Aparna.
Present.
Commissioner Copley is not.
Present.
Oh, online. Thank you. Commissioner Coleman.
Present.
Commissioner Gagne.
Present.
Commissioner Van Nyman.
Present.
And Vice Chair Woodyear.
Present.
All right, and I am Chair Weston. We'd like to thank the following staff for being present tonight: Jeff Churchill, Glenn Coyle, Michael Hintz, Francesca Liberti, and Chris Wyatt. I look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right,
Aye.
that's approved. And any corrections to the meeting summary from last time? Okay, and then I look for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 17th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That one's also approved. All right, so now it's time for us to hear public comment and items from the audience. This is for any topic that's not related to a public hearing. A reminder that verbal comments are on the land use docket item are closed. And we would keep our comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone to speak tonight? I know there was a lot of interest in the land use item.
There isn't.
Okay, then we will move on. In that case, we're going to start with concluding our work on the Transportation Master Plan, bringing up Michael Hintz and Francesca Liberti.
And they are online here, so let's give them a second. Okay, let me ping Francesca here.
We'll give it a moment, and then if not, we'll come back.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Sorry, having some technical difficulties.
Yep, we sure can.
Okay, great. I don't know if Michael's online here, but we are happy to bring forward the Transportation Master Plan. As noted in the packet, this is our final version and has been noted with the Planning Commission recommendation. We'll kind of bring it forward for the Planning Commission and then hoping to go to Council for a study session here at the end of January, and then looking for approval on the business meeting at the beginning of February if all goes according to plan. So I don't know, Michael, if you have anything to add?
No, I do not.
That was comprehensive. That's perfect. All right, so with that, I look for a motion to approve the report for City Council on the 2025 Transportation Master Plan, specifically the revision published on Tuesday.
So moved with the comment that it was fabulously done.
Yes, it was. Second?
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, and that is approved. All right, good job, everyone. Thank you. Next up is our study session on the 2025-26 annual docket, specifically the land use and zoning map amendments at 6900 188th Ave Northeast. Going to bring up Glenn Coyle.
Good evening. Tonight, we're just looking to have any further discussion regarding the issues matrix, and then if the commission is ready to move towards a vote and recommendation on that. So let me pull up issues matrix. Zoom in as best I can. I'm just gonna go through it. I know there's some open issues. There's a lot of closed issues. I'll just go through it in order. The first issue was requested by Commissioner Copley. We discussed a little bit of this last week regarding business park land. There was some follow-up discussion regarding the development agreements for this area. So we added some links and some additional contextual information on the previous development agreements for the area.
Yeah, this was great. I really appreciated the additional detail, and I'm comfortable closing this if there are no further comments.
Issue number 2 was just related to job needs and situation. That was closed at the last meeting. Question 3 was just a question regarding the split zoning designations and kind of the origin of the corridor mixed use on part of the land. We had a pretty robust discussion and kind of background on that. And I know towards the end, Commissioner Van Nyman asked a little bit more context on that, if we could do a little bit additional research on that. So we actually were able to provide a little bit more information, and that's in issue 10 below, so when we get to that, we will move to that. Issue number 4 was just regarding the Lake Washington School District property. That was closed. 5 was regarding the demands on our infrastructure. That was closed at the previous meeting. Number 6, outreach to the community. Kind of our process there related to Redmond Zoning Code 2176. We provided our outreach process for that, and that was closed at the previous meeting. Questions related to some of the overlays, such as the noise overlay in Southeast Redmond. That was closed. Housing units, we went over this, but this was Commissioner Copley's items, so just want to see if there was any additional discussion on this.
No, I thought this was helpful. I was surprised at the number of housing units that could be put on that lot, pleasantly surprised. And I think that we have 2 good options here. So I won't weigh in one way or another, but I'm just happy to see that something good is coming out of this lot. So thank you for doing the analysis.
Number 9 was some discussion and responses to questions Commissioner Parna submitted. That was discussed and closed at the previous meeting. Number 10 kind of further elaborates on the earlier question regarding the split zoning. So provided some information about the concept of split zoning in the first paragraph. And then we talk a little bit more about this particular property, Lot 7. And a lot of this was discussed at the previous meeting, but we were able to find some additional information during the adoption of the Southeast Neighborhood Plan in 2024. We pulled a quote here from the minutes of one of the meetings. There was a little bit of discussion. And then we also provided a link to the Planning Commission report and recommendation on the Southeast Neighborhood Plan that also had some additional information on this discussion. But ultimately, what it really comes down to was that with the light rail being planned for the Marymore district, that there was kind of a swap of kind of land for housing or mixed use being swapped for the Marymore, which is pretty much all manufacturing at the time. So that's generally the highest level reason. And then the secondary was that the neighborhood plan also called for like a neighborhood commercial type node in the 188th Woodbridge type of area to kind of do the complete neighborhood concept, you know, along with the Southeast Redmond Park, which had just been set aside. So any further discussion here?
No, you can close that. Thank you very much.
Number 11 was submitted by Commissioner Gagne. And basically it was just the question how this compares to other cities, you know, the business park designation. And one thing we just wanted to note, to highlight here is that Redmond is the only city that has a designation called business park. When we did a very high level kind of just look at some of the land use maps of some of the surrounding communities, I think I looked at Issaquah, Bellevue, Kirkland, Woodinville. I didn't look at Sammamish because they really don't have any. But one thing we did notice was that, and really this is just kind of looking at like Google Maps, or maybe just I drive around the city, you know, the region a lot. But a lot of the areas that we would call business park in Redmond, generally in those cities, are designated as mixed use low-rise, mixed-use, office, commercial, light industrial, but predominantly mixed-use. We should also note that the business park designation until the Redmond 2050 update was a mixed-use designation. It's similar to what's happened before is that we removed, as part of Redmond 2050, we removed the mixed-use residential as an allowed use in business park, but at the same time, in order to make sure we had enough capacity for housing, is that we pretty much, as we say, upzoned our downtown or urban center areas. But it should be noted that if folks ever been on Union Hill Road right by Avondale 520, there's the Pure Building. I think I put a picture there. This is in a business park zone and is a mixed-use building. And this was allowed under the previous zoning, so.
I appreciate the extra work that you did to answer that question, which I can imagine might be annoying when you're like, what are the other
It's fun to
cities
look at the
look like?
maps, actually, and.
But I appreciate the time, I appreciate the explanation, and I'm ready to close this.
Okay. Number 12 is also from Commissioner Gagne, was just regarding how much of our BP land is underdeveloped or could be redeveloped. As Jeff had noted that as part of our Redmond 2050, we had done a buildable lands analysis that really looked at lands, and there's a lot of metrics that go into it, but lands that could be considered underdeveloped or vacant. And again, this analysis was from 2020, and I believe the work on it was done in like 2019, so it is pretty dated. But I was able to find the map and kind of just compare some of the properties there. So we just wanted to note, and again, this is kind of ballpark, but we found that on the map, the largest areas of what we'll call, at least analysis showed, as developable lands were in the Willows Road area. And of those kind of bigger properties, the first one has already been redeveloped. It's that the Metters Building X building that just, I believe, opened like last year or so. So that was like a big redevelopment that it was probably mostly like an older office building. And then the other like larger developable land, at least from the analysis, is the Aerojet campus. I think that was built probably, I think it was in the 80s, maybe the 70s. So it has kind of that older style, very low density. So again, you know, that's still, you know, an active use, you know, and how we do buildable land is just, you know, there's space they could build up or anything, but those are just kind of the older buildings. For the Southeast Redmond area, there was a small parcel that has a daycare preschool. That's been the same. It's still there. I believe it's next to Swedish and the little animal hospital there. And then Lot 7, which is what this whole discussion about was noted in our billables lands analysis as vacant. So.
All right, thank you for that extra work, for all that explanation. I know where the Building X is. I don't know where Aerojet is. Where's the Aerojet campus?
It's north on the same road. You can't really see it from the road. There's a lot of little driveways.
Redmond Ridge?
No, it's right on Willows Road.
Oh, on Willows Road, okay.
Yeah, I would say north, yeah, probably like near 60 Acres Park.
Okay.
But on the other side, there's a little driveway. It kind of goes up the hill. It's probably gated. Or you probably need an ID badge, but you can see it from an aerial, but yeah, it's that northern part, before you get to 124th.
Okay.
It's on the west side.
That part was just curiosity.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate this work. I'm ready to close.
13, Vice Chair Woodyear asked about the property ownership. This might be a lot of detail. In the early 1900s, it was owned by Weyerhaeuser Timber Company. And I'd like to point out the asterisk that on the old map, the spelling of Weyerhaeuser was different. And I was like, is this a typo? And I kind of went back and forth a couple of times. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to put this in the issues matrix. But it's a nice little historical thing I noticed. Later, it was purchased by the Campbell Lumber Company, which had the big Campbell's mill right on Lake Sammamish on the north end there in what's now Marymore. In the 30s, it was purchased by Cadman for the quarry, and that was really the dominant land use and ownership in that area for good, 80, 100, 90 years or so. But more recently, the larger parcel for this area, as the Cadman quarry's kind of been petered out or changed, it's been parceled off over the years. The larger property where this particular one is located was created in 2007. It was a joint ownership by Taylor Union LLC and Cadman Magnuson, probably just for the development of these parcels. And then it was further short platted in 2012. Short plat just really means creating 8 or less lots. Same ownership company, so again, for the intention of usually developing the property. And then in 2022, it was sold to the company called Redmond, Washington 188 LLC, which is the current owner.
Glenn, I appreciate the deep research you've done on this, and I'm satisfied with the response, so you can close this.
Let's see, next, Parna asked about SEPR infill exemptions. The answer is yes. This proposal falls under the citywide infill exemption, which covers the full extent of the city apart from the downtown and Marymore infill exemptions and the overlake planned action. And any additional information on that can be found at the 2 links provided in the issues matrix.
Thank you. You can close this.
And the last question really weren't questions, it was just comments, but we just included this here just for community discussion. But staff did want to point out one thing from Chair Weston's analysis here, just to clarify for the community that our mixed-use designations do allow for and encourage job-generating uses. So we also want to note that approximately 78% of the 30,000 jobs the city needs to accommodate are allocated to our centers, which are mixed use. So just wanted to clarify that from your graph there, that it wasn't distinct housing versus jobs versus.
Sure, and I think that's an important consideration. I do think where this proposal is focusing more on the housing aspects of the potential land use change, it helps me keep things straight in my head. Like, there are far more housing units being created in a lot of the current mixed-use projects than pure jobs. So anyway, I do agree with what you're saying, but I think that this is still a useful breakdown. All right, so I'm happy to close, Aparna.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that's all we have.
All right, so with this, before I forget, I'm going to start by closing the written portion of the public hearing. And thank you for all of the comments that came in this week, too. That was excellent. I think at this point, what I'd like to do, because we have a little bit of time to come to consensus, and I'm not sure we all know where each other are on this. What I'd love to do is if everyone can kind of go around, if you have a strong feeling one way or another, and just explain a little bit of your rationale. I know that council would like to hear this too, but if you are leaning one way or the other, and especially for people who haven't submitted a comment yet, if there's anything you would like to discuss as a group, or if you have any things that are like kind of just tricky things you're working through, or want the feedback of other commissioners before we actually go to vote, this would be a great time for that. So I don't know if anyone wants to start. I think Commissioner Aparna and I already put forward opinions. I don't know, it's not entirely clear to me. We had really just nice broad topics covered in the issues matrix, but I'm not sure, especially after closing off the ones this week, if that led to specific lines of thinking. Commissioner Van Nyman.
I'm going to deviate a little bit from your request, which is that you said if you have strong opinions, and I do not. I honestly have mixed feelings about this. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of different variables and issues to weigh, and it's really not clear to me that I come down strongly on one side or the other. And the feedback that we got, and we had some discussion last time a little bit about the aquifer is significant, and how, should that play a role in our decision-making, in that if the goal, I realize we're looking just strictly at this one particular parcel land zoning, but if you want to consider getting that as clean up as possible, you are more likely to get there with a residential zoning. I mean, not residential, but to allow for housing. You're more likely to get the end result of having it be fully cleaned up. Does that make sense to people? Yeah. So that's part of the equation. If you want to think about the long-term nature of that area, and you want to have more of the walkability, the neighborhood shops and stuff, and we did get one public comment, and it's something you hear in the community a lot, represented in that one comment. Are you more likely to get there with the current zoning? Probably, right? I mean, I'm thinking out loud. So, like, the change in the zoning would result in all housing, in all likelihood, as opposed to the current zoning would at least have the one portion of it that where you would be more likely to get something more in that walkable. Does that make sense? I'm kind of rambling because I still don't know where I come down on all
can hop
this.
in on that. Like, that makes sense to me, especially because we have a very similar situation, I think, in Grasslawn, where there's a small commercial area outside of our neighborhood. It's actually in Kirkland, up by Bridle Trails. But it's like, that's really the only option near us for a grocery store, et cetera, or like coffee shops or that sort of thing. And so to me, like understanding also the economic difficulty of running a grocery store in areas that don't really have the population to support them. Like, that was part of that public comment. I think the coffee shops are probably more likely, but she was also just saying little shops and things to support the community. So I agree with your assessment on that, but I also think that we really can't, there's such a wide range of possible outcomes, both with the existing zoning and the future zoning, that it's almost, to me, like, I saw that more as a vote for like the overall vision of Redmond 2050, not necessarily for a specific thing on that parcel personally, because we have no idea. There's such a wide range of possibilities. Right, they could all be dentists. Other commissioners' thoughts? Commissioner Whittier?
I've approached this with a genuine desire to want to support this. I really want to support this, but my struggle is the unknowns. I don't see a committed plan. We're being asked to vote on unknowns, which could go a number of different ways. That is my core struggle. I see a lot. We spend a lot of time talking about this. A lot of discussion of what the possibilities could be. Most of that centers on residential use, primarily. I hear very little about the business component to this. I don't see anything concrete. That's the struggle that I have, and that makes it harder for me to support this because I'm being asked I'm being asked to say yes to something that's predicated entirely on unknowns. And it's a concern of mine about the precedent that this sets.
Can you say more about the precedent?
You want me to spell it?
No, I don't think that argument's really come up like in this forum. So I'd love to hear.
There's a lot of possibilities, and we're being asked to make an exception. When we think about the Redmond 2050, there's a component that speaks to the need for affordable housing. There's also a component that speaks to the need of businesses. So it's not either or, it's a balancing act. They're both important, they're both priorities, at least from my perspective. And so I want to understand, I need something a little bit more concrete it's hard for me to say yes to an exception without really having, when it's based on possibilities.
Makes sense. Commissioner Gagne?
I think for me, as usual, I find Commissioner Aparna's advocacy very compelling. And the robust discussion that we had at the last session and her written comments here kind of ground me in the idea that a lot of work went into, right, creating this policy and making changes this quickly feels premature.
Thank you. Commissioner Coleman?
I just want to plus one that. That's part of it for me too, is making a change now. We've only just gone through this. At the same time, if I think about it through probabilities, we can't define exactly what's going to happen there. But from the public comment that we got and the fact that if it's retained in its current environment, it's more likely probability to get the type of businesses that people who may live right next door and those people that live even closer, the community, the other community that's there, to see things they want. Now, I can't necessarily decide that's absolutely the case, but I think there's more of a probability if it retains its current environment being split. That's just my point of view.
Another round? Oh, do we see? Okay, great. Does anyone else have either another round of comments or weighing in on other people's, or are we feeling like we've said our piece? Commissioner Van Hyman? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Aparna.
So I did just want to have some more conversation about the aquifer and what people are thinking about that. Like, it seems, again, we're back to like, we don't know exactly. It all gets very tricky when but like, that seems pretty significant to me that we would want it to be cleaned up if we could make it.
Commissioner Aparna?
2 points. The aquifer thing it's something that I also thought of for a long time. And here's where I landed on that. We have currently regulations for what is the current zoning designation and what needs to be cleaned up, the level of cleanup. Now, if we hypothetically, let's say we approve this project and it goes into housing where the requirements go up a notch. It's a great idea, but again, so many unknowns. Secondly, it does drive up the cost of the project. What that means to what finally gets built, I don't know. Again, hypotheticals. There's so many of these, right? So for me, what I realize is the cleaning up of these spaces, it takes time, it takes money, but there are also ways to work with the system and figure out other possible solutions to it. If you get into the technical things, there can be ways. So again, who does what and how much of a difference is the cleanup between the expectations of a business park to a residential? If it is significant, then the cost is then how are they penciling in the numbers, potentially? If it is not significant, then we're almost there anyway. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's how I'm looking at it. The one thing that I wanted to add on my account was let me read it out because I'm probably better at that. I wanted to add that the business manufacturing park will add a certain type of jobs to the community, which if we have a commercial mixed use with shops and then housing, that adds a different type of set of jobs. So from an economic vitality standpoint, it's a question of a balancing thing. What kind of jobs do we want to attract in the long run? So I don't know what's going to get built, what kind of jobs, but by saying business park, it's a certain kind of job. hopefully it will be the kind that propels us all forward. But if it is not, it's likely to be a little more retail and so on, and that's fine too. But we should be aware of the difference in what we're trying to do from an economic standpoint. So
It's not apples to apples. All right. So with that, I think what I might do, unless someone has a thought that springs to mind or another comment that they want to walk through, but I'm not seeing that. Okay, so what I'd like to do is then bring this to a vote. The way this is going to work is similar to normal, but I'm going to just leave it open which way the motion goes. And so we have two options here. We can either adopt the amendments as written, or we can deny the amendments. And so once a motion is made, I'll look for a second. Once we have that, we can have a quick discussion to like finesse wording if we need to at all, but this is a pretty straightforward one. And then we'll vote. If that doesn't reach a conclusion, then we can try again a different way. The other thing is if we have a tie, because we have enough people that could happen potentially, then I have the tie-breaking vote. So with that, I'm going to look for a motion to either adopt or deny the land use and zoning map amendments at 6900 188th Ave Northeast for the 2025-26 annual docket. Commissioner Parna.
I move to deny the land use and zoning map amendments as presented.
I second that motion.
Great. I don't think we need to clarify that wording. That was pretty clear. Commissioner Copley?
I was going to move to approve.
Okay, well, let's do the first one first, and then we can go, if we don't reach a conclusion at that one, then we will do the next round.
Sounds good.
So with that, all in favor of the motion to deny the land use amendments?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
And any?
Nay.
Commissioner Van Nyman opposes. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Copley?
Nay, I also oppose.
Okay, 2 opposed. So in that case, the land use and zoning amendments were rejected or denied. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work getting through this. This was a lot to think about and a lot of abstract future thinking. So I really appreciate the seriousness that you took this with. Glenn Coyle.
Do you have a vote? I'm just trying to tally.
I'm not actually allowed to vote, so unless I'm clearly deny, but I believe.
Abstaining?
Well, no, I believe as chair I can't. Oh, I vote? Well, then deny. Huzzah. Thank you for asking. All right, I will reread the rules and come back next time. I to deny. Do people want a 5-minute break, or do we want to jump into our next item on our plans for the rest of the year? We're going to go. Okay. Hold on. All right. So with that, we are going to start our briefing on the Planning Commission's 2026 work program with Jeff Churchill.
Good evening, everybody, and nice to be with you. As the chair said, this is a briefing on the 2026 Planning Commission work program as we know it today. Things come up during the year, so there could be additional items, but this is as best we can foresee it at the moment. All I would like to do tonight is provide an overview of the work program, identify some next steps, and if there's questions or discussion, we can do that at the end. I'm actually happy to take questions anytime. I'll revise that. So I would say similar to 2025, although the commission spent a little bit of the beginning of 2025 finishing up Redmond 2050, 2026 is really a focus on implementation, updating our plans and our development regulations to align with Redmond 2050. This graphic you may recognize from one of the dozens of Redmond 2050 presentations that you saw. It just shows again how the Redmond Comprehensive Plan fits into sort of the constellation of planning documents in the planning universe. And it's in yellow, and all the blue stuff is what we're going to see this year. We'll see changes to, proposed changes to zoning and development regulations, updates to functional plans. We are even going to talk about neighborhood plans, and also some strategic plans. So you'll see all of those. The first bucket of things will be annual docket items. Come April will be the deadline for annual docket items for the 2026-2027 annual docket. There are a couple of things that we believe will be on the docket once that date comes past. One is updates to the wastewater plan. There are, we talked about one of the areas in the context of the last agenda item around Southeast Redmond. There's a need for an update there. We know there are updates that were identified as part of Redmond 2050 for downtown that are needed. And so that's an item that we anticipate will be on the docket. Another one is there are a number of neighborhood connections maps in the comprehensive plan that are from neighborhood plans that were not updated as part of Redmond 2050. Many of those connections actually got folded into the transportation master plan that you just recommended, or well, you recommended it 2 weeks ago, but the report for which that you approved tonight. But that action didn't repeal those maps, so we need to go back and do that. Those are the ones we know about. There could be more. There obviously will be an invitation for community members to submit amendments as well. There are a couple, or there's one functional plan that we're anticipating updates on, major updates on, and that's a new stormwater and surface water system plan. We don't have one. It's in development, and it would be the first time that we have had one in Redmond. Surface water and stormwater, that's all the stuff that falls out of the sky and goes into the creeks and rivers. There will be a healthy dose of development regulations. There's one update I made to this slide, I half made. For the tree code, I put which quarters we would anticipate drafts and completion, because I know that now, and I didn't know that when the packet got published. Those should be for the year 2026, just so that it is clear. There are 3 packages out there right now. Actually, earlier today, there was an office hours event related to them for business improvement, fences, and 2025 legislative conformance. Those are on Let's Connect. We expect to be at the Planning Commission next month with a recommendation to you for you to review and hold a public hearing. So those will be the ones that come first. We are actively working on updates to the sign code, principally for temporary non-commercial signs. Those include, but are not limited to, political signs. That's an area of the code that is deficient and that needs attention. There may be follow-up with other parts of the sign code, just because once you start asking people, what changes would you like to see in the sign code, you get ideas that go beyond the scope of what you're really working on. The temporary non-commercial signs they need to be addressed, and we need to do that first, and then perhaps we can devote some additional time and resources to the rest of the sign code. There will be a 2026 code cleanup. By the end of the first quarter, we'll know what the scope of that is, and in the second quarter, we should have a draft available. And because it's annual, we finish it every year, so we expect to finish that by the end of the year. The home business regulations, in talking to staff earlier today, I actually think this one will take a little bit longer. So you may know, but you may not, that the city's engaged in a business license study to understand maybe what are some of the gaps in our business licensing system. One of the outcomes from that, we're hoping, is to develop stronger relationships with and better communication with home-based businesses. And so we would really like to see the outcomes of that study first before we start engaging people who operate home-based businesses in Redmond on changes to development regulations. We can start working on concepts prior to the end of the business licensing study, but before we need that study to finish before the engagement can start. So that's just a sequencing thing. So we think it'll probably be, I I would say probably at least 3 months later, at least 1 quarter later, maybe 2, before we get the home business regulations out the door compared to what you see there. And then design standards, we've talked about a little bit already. That contract is now underway. We took a tour with the consultants was it December, Glenn, that we went out? It was a very dreary day. It wasn't, according to the apps, it wasn't raining, but we were getting wet. So I think there was moisture in the air. But nevertheless, they saw some examples of architecture, especially in our centers, and so that work is underway. And the Planning Commission will have briefings in 2026, but hearing on a recommendation would be in 2027. The tree code, Commissioner Aparna is probably the only person who remembers the Planning Commission actually made a recommendation on tree code a number of years ago now. And subsequent to that, the City of Kirkland's tree code was taken to the Growth Board by a builders organization. And that took a while to play out. And then there's Redmond 2050. But suffice it to say, so that work is starting again. And so we do anticipate that in the second quarter of this year, that there will be a public draft again for the community to look at. It's been enough years now that it's not that we're starting over, but we're not going to assume that what the Planning Commission recommended years ago is the starting place, since so much has changed since then. So we'll come back to the Planning Commission again for a new review and a new hearing before it goes to the council. So you can expect that in 2026. And then there are some elements of the development incentives program that we identified during Redmond 2050 that we need to come back to this. So there's a couple of different things going on. There's actual code amendments related to development incentives, but then kind of behind the scenes, there's also, there are development incentives that are in the program that are adopted that say, see some forms and some paperwork for the details, but not all those forms and paperwork exist yet. So that's not something that's going to come to the Planning Commission, but just know there's kind of two parts to the development incentives update. One is the code amendments themselves. The other is like sort of the implementation side of it and making sure that the application requirements are there for some incentives that are relatively new and were not in any part of our code before. So like some things like anti-displacement. What kind of documentation is the city going to require in order to accept that incentive and then offer the extra floor area or height or points? So that is the end of that list. As I said, there could be other things. We have sort of a placeholder in our work plan for, well, what happens if the legislature passes new laws in 2026 that need action on the part of cities? That seems likely. It's not at all clear that we would need to work on that right away in 2026. It depends on what the deadlines are for cities that the legislature sets, but we'll be watching that as well. And we will also report to the Planning Commission as the session comes to a close, kind of what happened in Olympia that's going to affect this group.
One question I have for actually almost all of these, I would be so interested, just as chair, to understand better for these sort of little piece-by-piece things, how conflict of interest comes in. It really popped up for me, for example, the home business regulations. I recently closed a home business, so I don't think I'm covered, but I'm not clear, like, is there any point on any of this that we should consider if we should need to recuse? So little pieces like that would be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That might be something we can either send out, there's a few different ways we could handle that. We could send out some conflict of interest information that's available. There's probably some on the MRSC. We'd have to go see and find those resources. We could also address it during the annual workshop in April.
Okay.
Or if neither of those are good, we can develop some resources, or we can just bring it back as a session during a Planning Commission meeting.
And I'm just thinking, like, many of us probably have fences. I know the sign code is going to be interesting in many ways to people on this commission, either because they are involved in campaigns or because they have longstanding opinions about certain signs being up. So it's just understanding a little bit better what our footing is on some of these decisions be super helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. People have opinions about trees. Like any, these are, when it's smaller pieces like this, it's really helpful to understand where we
Sure.
be making our choices from.
Happy to do that.
Great, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Coleman.
I had a quick question. Just it's a general question on the stormwater and surface water system plan. And I think I may be getting this wrong, but the Sammamish River Trail, for a while, there was signs up saying, hey, we're going to rip it up and do that. And I know that's King County, right? How related is what work was supposed to be happening there and kind of disappeared to any of this?
That's a wastewater project.
A wastewater project.
It is
Okay, thank
it's
you.
just other kind of water.
Right.
Yeah, that's specifically for an upgrade to their trunk line, which runs underneath the trail for quite a distance.
But they haven't done that yet, right?
It's not completely done. Actually, some of the work has been done in different segments. It's a multi-year, multi-segment project.
Thank you for clarifying for me. Thanks.
Other comments?
And it is operated by the county. You're correct.
All right.
Okay, there are a few other things that are going to come to the Planning Commission. These are things that we won't be asking for recommendations on, but it is related to your work. One is the capital investment strategy, the vision blueprint. That's something that Glenn is working on. The city has one of these. It's for the 2030 comprehensive plan. So this updates it for the 2050 comprehensive plan. And what it is, if you don't remember, is it's taking all of the investment plans from the different functional plans, the transportation master plan, the water plan, the wastewater plan, and putting them together to provide an overall view of the capital investments the city's going to make over a period of 25 years. And to what end, to show the results of that. So that's what that is. It's not a functional plan. It's a way of telling the story of the capital investments, and it also puts everything in one place. It doesn't go into the comp plan, so it doesn't need a recommendation, but it is called for in the comprehensive plan to have this. The Housing and Human Services Strategic Plan, these are refreshes of 2 existing strategic plans to make them into one plan because there's so much overlap in the content of those plans. They will be built on the policies in the comprehensive plan, but it's not a functional plan. It's what are the actions and strategies that we're going to employ over the next 5 years to advance the policies in Redmond 2050. So we'll certainly bring that to you as a briefing or 2 briefings at some point in the year. And then neighborhood planning, there's kind of 2 parts to this. The first part is refreshing what is the process of neighborhood planning in Redmond and what is the product of neighborhood planning in Redmond within the new Redmond 2050 framework. So those are questions that we're going to ask you and ask community members and ask staff. And that's not something we'll be asking for a recommendation on, but that's just to help us, to help inform kind of what does neighborhood planning look like in Redmond going forward. And then there's the neighborhood plans themselves, which will come after that, and those will come to you for a recommendation because those, the parts that end up in the comprehensive plan, that's a planning commission activity and will require a recommendation from the planning commission. I don't know that there'll be any of those in 2026, but you would see those in 2027 and following, probably for a number of years since there's a number of them to update.
Commissioner Coleman.
I'm just curious, how do we engage with that if we're giving some thoughts, but how do you capture those and what happens there? What's the process?
What is the process for neighborhood planning?
Well, you know, it's different from obviously what's the rest of the year, but these are program items that we're going to have a conversation about. But how do you capture, like say for the neighborhood planning, our thoughts along with the community's thoughts? Like what's the process of us sort of saying something here and it being either written down, included?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna take note of it, and if there's a specific way you want us to reflect it back to you, we can. But it's likely that we will have something out on Let's Connect with a questionnaire, so there'll be responses captured from community members there. Those are then responses that we can share with you as part of the briefings to the Planning Commission. We can take your responses and put them in a document, in a matrix or something like that, but where it all filters down into what does the process look like at the end of the day.
Yeah, that I thought when you just said something there that struck me. I don't know if we can do this, but I think for me, it'd be helpful to understand what you get back from the community before we actually then have a conversation ourselves to have a better idea of what's coming up.
Sure.
Not that it should necessarily change or bias us in that sense, just to understand what is bubbling to the surface for the community as a whole. If we can talk to our own friends and community, but that'd be great if we could do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I had one question for the neighborhood planning, especially where the zones kind of got like unified a little bit more. Is there still a plan to have separate plans for like Grasson versus Education Hill or that sort of like, is there a point in having a difference, or is it the sort of thing where it's like, okay, the centers each have their own thing and then the neighborhoods are more general?
Yeah, I think what belongs in a neighborhood plan is exactly the kind of questions that we're thinking about.
Okay.
And so what kinds of policies are appropriate in a neighborhood plan? One of the things that we're talking about is, a main theme of Redmond 2050 is complete neighborhoods. And so that's like the perfect topic to take out into a neighborhood planning process because it's a neighborhood scale topic. So maybe that's a focus area for neighborhood plans, but it's exactly those questions that we're wrestling through.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. And then also just coming off the transportation master plan, there was so much of that was like very neighborhood specific in terms of like either where there are pain points or where there are safety issues or where there's like wishes for connectivity or whatever it is. So I would love to see that.
And that was true
Still there.
20 years ago also. And the two consequences of that were like lists of projects and then also these neighborhood connections maps. The challenge with those is that they were not well maintained and they were not always referenced when looking at prioritizing capital investments. And so I think as we've been thinking about that, one thing we did with the Transportation Master Plan was to take those projects and actually put them into the Transportation Master Plan so that when staff or others are looking at, well, if you're reviewing a development project, well, what connections are in the plan here? But there's only one place you have to go look. It's going to be in the Transportation Master Plan instead of in 10 different neighborhood plans. So it is still very likely, I think, that there will be requests for transportation improvements at a neighborhood scale. And we want to make sure that those get to a place where they can be seen and acted on in the future, and that might not be in the neighborhood plan, but it's still important to do that. Okay, next steps. We'll be coming back to you on all of these. That's what makes it a work plan, I guess. With most of them will involve recommendations to the City Council, and most of them will be in 2026. And we're looking forward to that. And I'm happy to answer other questions or be part of more discussion.
Great. Any follow-up questions or comments, or are we just waiting to see? All right. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Next up is our staff and commissioner updates, and we'll start with Glenn.
First, to let folks know, now we can confirm the January 28th meeting is canceled. We had reserved that for an additional study session on the Redmond Flex docket item, but that's been concluded. So our next meeting will be February 11th. At that meeting, we'll look to have the Planning Commission's report and recommendation approved. And I'd like to note on that, it probably be very helpful for council if folks want to share kind of any letters or comments regarding the vote or anything like that. Because as we present that to council, sometimes those questions come up, kind of what the commissioners' thinking and thoughts are, and it can be a little challenging to kind of summarize or contextualize some of the statements. So not a requirement, just something to think about to include with the Planning Commission recommendation. Otherwise, as Jeff had noted, we will start having some study sessions on those code amendments or some groups of those code amendments that was mentioned. And that's actually pretty much the agenda items going forward for the next few months. So we'll be related to that. And then I believe coming into April or May, we will have some of our next docket items too, so.
Jeff?
I want to let you know that on Tuesday, the 20th at 4:30, as part of the committee at the whole meeting for the city council, there'll be the second of 4 Housing and Human Services kind of education presentations. So if you wanted to get a deep dive into housing, watching these 4 in over the course of 6 months would be a great way to do that. The theme for Tuesday's presentation is Build More Housing Faster. So again, as part of Tuesday's committee of the whole meeting, of course, they're recorded so you can watch it anytime.
Great topic. Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Aparna.
So the water plan from the Cascade Water Alliance still being approved from what I hear. So requesting staff at this point to hopefully get us something when it is released. This is a water plan that was due way back, if you all recall. So I just got a message like a couple weeks ago saying they've still not approved it, so we're just waiting. That's quite terrifying, frankly, but yeah, so that's one. And secondly, I would like to tell you all that the tree code will have a lot of action. Just prepare yourselves. So, thank you.
Fair warning. Commissioner Coleman.
It's actually a question for Jeff and Glenn. I see that we're going to have an application out for a Planning Commission Youth Advisor, which I saw a couple of days ago. Is that right? I think. I saw it on the website. Can you maybe talk more about that? It's great because it's part of the 20...
I can confirm that's true.
What's that?
Yes, I can confirm that's true. So this it comes out of discussion. It's been quite a while. There was a little bit of a convoluted process to go through to be able to get the announcement out. But once we concluded that that was possible to do so, we did that. And so we are looking for applications, and I believe that the deadline's in the spring or the late winter, but for a youth advisor who would begin in September, a high school student who lives or attends school in Redmond. We're lucky that we have a commissioner here who has a family member who has done something like that, and so has some experience as a parent in that matter. And so as we develop our systems, we will be developing our systems rather in the coming months so that we can be successful in that endeavor.
That's great. Thank you.
If you know great kids, point them our way. Commissioner Gagne.
Just a quick logistical question. On February 11th, I think I'm going to run into a conflict with a work situation, but I can appear late. But I've never tried to do that. Is that even a thing that we can do if we have a situation where we might not be able to get here until 7:30? Is it better to just not be here? Can we jump in late and that doesn't disrupt or change how things are able to, especially if there's a vote or anything?
So what I'll do is I'll announce you at the next plausible moment.
Okay.
And just say that you're present.
Okay.
And that will correct the minutes. And then that would be, it's wonderful if you can join.
Okay, cool.
And if you'd prefer to do remote, that's fine, but here is great too.
Okay, thanks. Just hadn't come up and I wasn't sure. I'd never seen it happen, so I
No,
wanted to ask.
no, but that's great. I'm glad you can
Okay.
be here for whatever parts you can be. I have one small thing. I just like to say welcome back to Glenn, since this is his first day back for this quarter as our primary support person. So thank you for being here. And with that, I think I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, then we are adjourned.